Camilla had a plan. A specific, carefully constructed plan that she had been advancing behind palace doors for months. Her son Tom Parker Bowles, 50 years old, a successful food writer with genuine media presence and real charitable connections, was going to be given an official royal patron role. One of those positions where a member of the royal family becomes the public face of a charity or national institution. The kind of role that comes with the full weight and prestige of the crown behind it. The argument she made to palace insiders was not unreasonable on its surface. The working royal roster has shrunk to a critically thin level. Harry is in California, permanently removed from duty. Andrew is banished. Charles is 76, managing cancer, with a strictly limited schedule. The number of people available to handle patronages, state events, and public engagements has dropped to a handful. The remaining members are carrying an unsustainable workload. Tom Parker Bowles could fill gaps, help charities that need coverage, give William and breathing room. Modern, pragmatic, logical. And then William and Princess and dismantled every single part of that argument so thoroughly, so completely, and with such precision that by the time they were finished, Camilla had to withdraw the proposal entirely and walk away from the negotiating table. But here is the move that turned a simple no into something historically significant. William did not just block Camilla's son. He immediately solved the problem she claimed only Tom could solve, with someone else entirely. Welcome to the Marquee Report. This is the story of how William's countermove left Camilla without an argument, an alternative, or a path forward. Before we get into the confrontation itself, let's establish what Camilla was actually asking for, because the significance of the request is lost without understanding what a royal patronage actually represents. A royal patronage is not an honorary badge or a celebrity endorsement. When a member of the royal family becomes the official patron of a charity, a medical foundation, a cultural institution, or a military regiment, they are deploying the full prestige of the crown to validate that organization. The presence of a royal patron functions as a guarantee of public trust, an institutional shield that elevates the organization above commercial or political life. This works for one specific and irreplaceable reason. The public looks at a royal patron and sees someone who has surrendered their private life to the service of the state. Someone bound by constitutional oath to represent not themselves, but the institution of the monarchy, and through it the nation. So if Tom Parker Bowles were granted such a role, the implications would be genuinely and constitutionally significant. It would mean the monarchy was quietly acknowledging him as an official representative of the royal house. It would blur the lines so completely that the public would no longer be able to distinguish between a bloodline member bound by constitutional oath and a private citizen who happens to be the son of the queen consort. And that distinction is not a technicality. It is the foundation on which the monarchy's legitimacy rests. William and understood this immediately. They were not looking at a logistics problem. They were looking at a constitutional boundary problem. And the difference between those two framings determined everything that followed. Here is where the strategy becomes genuinely interesting, because William and did not simply say no. They turned the entire debate into a procedural examination that exposed exactly how the proposal had been advanced. The appointment of a royal patron under normal circumstances is an exhaustive process. Months of background checks, constitutional review, explicit formal consensus from senior advisors and royal council members. The procedural safeguards exist specifically to prevent nepotism and favoritism from influencing who gets to carry the crown's institutional weight. William and launched a rigorous examination of the process itself, demanding a full, transparent audit of the vetting procedure and openly questioning whether the recommendation had gone through the required formal channels or whether it had been fast-tracked through personal influence under the cover of the personnel shortage. They asked the question nobody in Camilla's camp wanted to answer in public. Had this proposal actually passed through the normal safeguards, or had it been advanced through the informal back channels that personal proximity to the Queen can open? By focusing their challenge on procedure rather than personality, they exposed the proposal's fundamental weakness. It lacked the institutional consensus required for a decision of this magnitude. The formal safeguards designed to prevent exactly this kind of appointment had not been fully deployed. The moment that became clear, the proponents of the appointment lost their procedural ground entirely. And Princess Anne, whose 50 years of relentless institutional service gives her moral authority that cannot be dismissed as stubbornness, made it explicitly clear that the rules exist precisely to ensure personal influence can never overshadow the permanent responsibilities of the state. The precedent question destroyed whatever was left. If the son of a queen consort can represent the crown today, what prevents extended relatives of future monarchs from demanding identical access tomorrow? The door that opens for Tom Parker Bowles does not close again for anyone else who comes after him. And William and were not prepared to open it. Here is where William's strategy goes from effective to genuinely brilliant, because blocking Camilla's proposal was only half the move. Instead of leaving the manpower problem unsolved, instead of simply saying no and allowing Camilla's argument that the monarchy had no choice to stand, William immediately advanced an alternative that eliminated the entire premise of her case. He proposed Peter Phillips and his wife Harriet Spurling. Peter Phillips is the oldest grandson of Queen Elizabeth II and the son of Princess Anne. Unlike many figures within the royal orbit, Peter has spent over 20 years building a genuinely successful career in the private sector. Corporate roles at Jaguar and Williams Formula One. Managing Director of SEL UK. Real experience in business management, corporate marketing, and large-scale sports entertainment. Self-made in a way that is genuinely rare within royal circles. Raised by Princess Anne to be completely self-reliant. Never held a formal royal title, and never needed one to build a credible professional life. His deep lifelong friendship with Prince William means he already functions as a trusted figure within William's inner circle. And his bloodline, direct grandson of Elizabeth II, is unimpeachable. Harriet Spurling is a highly dedicated pediatric nurse with frontline clinical expertise that is extraordinarily rare within royal public life. Catherine's most significant long-term public work has been focused on early childhood development and pediatric mental health through the Royal Foundation Center for Early Childhood. With Catherine managing a delicate balance between her ongoing health recovery and her constitutional duties, the palace faced a genuine void in its most vital public health campaigns. Harriet's medical expertise fills that void directly and immediately, without any constitutional risk, without any rule bending, without any public funding. The contrast with what Camilla proposed is devastating in its clarity. Camilla's proposal required bending constitutional rules, blurring bloodline boundaries, and setting a precedent that could reshape the institution for generations. William's proposal cost the public nothing, required no rule changes, and was backed by direct bloodline legitimacy. Here is the structural innovation that William's counterproposal actually represents, because it goes beyond simply choosing Peter and Harriet over Tom Parker Bowles. What William and effectively created is being called the Associate Royals model. Under this framework, Peter and Harriet received nothing from the public purse. No aristocratic titles. No increase to the financial burden on British taxpayers. No formal constitutional appointments that require procedural oversight. Instead, they operate as specialized elite ambassadors, donating their professional skills to specific high-priority campaigns. Every public appearance, every statement, every charitable interaction must be vetted and approved by William's personal press office, ensuring complete alignment with the monarchy's core messaging. A strict boundary between public service and private enterprise was established simultaneously. When Peter operates in his corporate capacity, he is explicitly barred from utilizing any royal branding. When the couple performs charitable duties, they do so strictly as volunteering family members, with controlled frequency of appearance, specifically to preserve the unique value of the royal association. This is the model that makes Tom Parker Bowles unnecessary without anyone having to say so directly. The manpower shortage Camilla identified as the justification for her proposal has been addressed. The charitable gaps have been filled. The workload on William and has been eased. And it was done entirely without Camilla's son. Here is where the full impact of what just happened lands for Camilla specifically. She had been arguing behind closed doors for months that the working royals were under unsustainable strain, that William and could not maintain the pace alone, that the monarchy faced a capacity crisis that could only be solved with radical flexibility. William's response was essentially, "Here are two people from within the bloodline properly vetted, properly positioned, ready to serve at no cost to the public, and fully capable of filling every gap you identified." What exactly is the problem now? The answer, of course, was that there was no problem now, except that Camilla's son was no longer needed. Faced with the unyielding united front of William, and confronted by a flawless bloodline-backed alternative that completely neutralized her argument, Camilla withdrew the proposal entirely. She departed from the negotiations. The bid to place Tom Parker Bowles inside the official machinery of the monarchy was permanently canceled. King Charles was reportedly satisfied with the outcome. He had spent his reign carefully balancing the delicate dynamics of a blended family against the rigorous demands of his constitutional office. William and Anne's counter-strategy provided him with the perfect exit ramp. He did not have to personally reject his wife's proposal. The institutional system worked exactly as it was designed to work. The boundaries held without requiring a direct confrontation between husband and wife. Catherine was reportedly delighted. Harriet's willingness to bring specialized pediatric expertise to the early childhood campaigns she has spent years building represents exactly the kind of informed professional support that matters for those campaigns to continue at full strength. Here is what this entire episode actually tells you about where power inside the British monarchy sits right now. This was never about personal animosity toward Tom Parker Bowles. It was never a petty family grievance about who gets invited to which events or who sits in which row at Ascot. It was a defense of constitutional integrity led by the two people in the family who understand that integrity better than anyone else, Princess, and with 50 years of relentless disciplined service, and Prince William, who has been explicit for years about the absolute necessity of maintaining definitive boundaries between the official royal family and the extended family of Queen Camilla. William has consistently maintained that while Camilla is the crowned queen consort and deserves the full respect her office commands, her children and relatives from her previous marriage must remain classified as private citizens. They are guests at family celebrations. They are entirely separate from the machinery of the state. The moment those boundaries are allowed to soften even fractionally, the credibility of the entire institution begins to erode. And once it erodes, it cannot simply be restored through a subsequent press statement or a carefully worded palace communication. The defeat of the Parker Bowles proposal has drawn a line that will govern the institution for a generation. It serves as a permanent reminder that within the House of Windsor personal influence may occasionally advance itself behind closed doors, but the absolute demands of duty, tradition, and constitutional law will ultimately prevail. Here is where everything stands right now. Tom Parker Bowles will not hold an official royal patron role. The proposal was withdrawn completely. Peter Phillips and Harriet Sperling have stepped forward under the Associate Royals model, serving the institution with bloodline legitimacy, professional expertise, and zero cost to the public. Charles approved the arrangement. Catherine welcomed Harriet's pediatric expertise for her most important public health campaigns. and Princess Anne's institutional authority helped ensure the procedural challenge was irresistible. The most telling detail in this entire story might be the simplest one. Camilla argued there was a manpower crisis. William and solved the manpower crisis without her son. The crisis disappeared. The work continues. The boundaries held. That is not just a political victory for the future king. That is a statement about who understands how to operate the machinery of the monarchy, and who has attempted to operate it for reasons that have nothing to do with the institution's actual needs. The keys to the kingdom remain exactly where they have always been, in the hands of those who carry the weight of the crown, not those who simply stand beside the person who wears it. This has been the Marquee Report. Subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss what comes next. See you on the next one.